the last few years, the Chicago Bears have seemed more like cuddly teddy bears than Kodiaks who should be kept behind bars. But in 1983, that growl out of the Windy City could mean the monsters of the Midway are ready to do more than just be dormant bear rugs on the floor of the NFC Central. They come down south to New Orleans to meet the Saints, armed with favorite weapon Walter Payton and a host of new Bear Cubs who should help move the football. But while Payton's feet will be busy, those of his Saint counterpart will not. New Orleans running star George Rogers has a knee injury that will keep him out of action today. So the offensive burden falls on the worldly shoulders of grizzled old vet Ken Stabler, who will hope to spark enough key plays to send the Bears back into hibernation. Both teams are perennial also-rans looking to move up in the world and will try to take a step closer to respectability in the Superdome. From Cajun Country, it's the Chicago Bears and New Orleans Saints on the NFL Game of the Week. There isn't much Snake Stabler hasn't seen in his 14 seasons of NFL play. What he saw and recognized on the game's very first series was a Bear defense that was playing the run very aggressively. After just a few rushing attempts, the Snake knew that going on foot would be treacherous. The Saints tried to throw, it was not exactly a bed of roses to be had there either. With its brand new 3-4 defensive front, the Bears won an early battle, then tasted more success as quarterback Jim McMahon engineered a touchdown march on Chicago's first possession. To new tight end Jay Saldi, late of the Cowboys, set up the game's first score by another recent arrival, number 83 wide receiver Willie Gault, late of the U.S. Olympic track team. Gault turned down the Olympic gold of 1984 for the Bears' green dollars of 83, and Chicago fans are delighted. What made Gault's first touchdown as a Bear work was McMahon's ability to scramble out of harm's way and find the speedy rookie in the end zone. Chicago grabbed the early lead, but the celebration was one of the shortest, even in the city that knows how to throw a party. The denizens of Bourbon Street finally got something of their own to cheer about after the Bears' kickoff. Backup wide receiver Kenny Duckett, number 83, raised 54 yards to give the Saints excellent field position. Then Stabler went to work via the airways. In just 5 plays, the Saints pushed past a determined defensive wall of Bears and had the tying score, coming off the efforts of George Rogers' stand-in. Number 46, Hokie Gaijan, came through with his second touchdown in as many weeks as New Orleans drew even at 7. It would be one of the few successful rushing attempts by the Saints. With Rodgers on the shelf, like their chances far better with the ball in flight. One of the heroes was tight end Hobie Brenner, number 85, who made several key catches in the first half. His efforts helped the Saints move ahead 10-7 early in the second period. But Chicago showed no reluctance to throw either, and the stop-and-go heroics of wide receiver Ken Marjoram, number 82, helped reel off a 60-yard rebuttal to New Orleans' passing fancies. Bear kicker Bob Thomas followed Marjoram's moment with a field goal that tied matters at 10. And that's just where things stayed for the remainder of the first half. In the final minutes of period 2, defense ruled the roost as neither team could stop each other's pass rush. Stabler was hurried into throws or costly interceptions, such as number 21, Leslie Frazier's heist with little more than 3 minutes to go. But if the Bears could dish it out, so could the Saints. New Orleans head coach Bum Phillips has built a pretty fair pass rush in the Crescent City, and he turned it loose on a soon-to-be shell-shocked Jim McMahon. The Saints' front wall isn't exactly loaded with household names, but they did a lot to change that against Chicago. Ends Bruce Clark, Jim Wilkes, and Reggie Lewis and nose tackle Derland Moore pummeled the Bears all afternoon and were a key ingredient to the game's final outcome. The Saints would finish the day with a team record 8 sacks, but to end Bear hopes at intermission, they used an interception to get the job done. Number 25, Johnny Poe, picked off McMahon's heave at the goal line, and the half ended with a 10-10 tie. But New Orleans' domination on both offense and defense would continue well into the third quarter. The defense resumed their surly posture, and the Saints' special teams had a few shocks in store as well when punter Russell Ertzleben passed on 4th down to keep a New Orleans drive going. Now almost completely avoiding the run, Stabler put the Saints back on top with a scoring strike to the productive Hobie Brenner. It was the first touchdown of Brenner's pro career, an exciting moment for the receiver from run-happy USC. Until getting to the NFL, Brenner might have been excused if he thought the tight end was an ineligible receiver. The Saints were now ahead, and it didn't take them long to get even more. On the very next Bears drive, Saint defensive end Tony Elliott, number 99, stripped Matt Suey of the ball for a fumble, and New Orleans had possession once again. Then took the scrambling Stabler just one play to get it into the end zone, and the man on the receiving end was wide receiver Kenny Duckett. With George Rogers gone, the Saints had to pass, and thanks to Stabler, they were doing a pretty good job of it. No one receiver was dominant. Stabler saw to that by spreading the wealth to Brenner, Jeff Grote, Lindsey Scott, and Kenny Duckett, among others. One thing was now certain. Unless the Bears came back, and soon, Stabler and the Saints were going to turn them into warmed-over gumbo. With 8 minutes to go in period 3, the Saints were riding high, and Chicago had its work cut out. But come back the Bears would, and in a big way. Before this game was over, Chicago would make enough noise and create enough excitement to rival Mardi Gras at its zenith. In the first 2 games of the young season, the Bears, behind second-year quarterback Jim McMahon, had piled up a lot of yardage, but had had trouble putting points on the board. This pattern persisted against the Saints, and midway through the third quarter, McMahon needed to throw with the Bears 2 touchdowns behind. But the Saints' pass rush continued to overwhelm McMahon, and he was forced to lead with a strained neck muscle. His replacement, Vince Evans, gave the ball to number 34, Walter Payton. Payton's juking jitterbug run cut New Orleans' lead in half and seemed to awaken a Bears team that had been in a slumber since early in the game. But on the ensuing kick, the Bears put themselves right back in a hole. Kenny Duckett took the ball a yard deep in his own end zone and raced 61 yards to the Chicago 40-yard line. But on the Saints' second play following the return, Chicago's defense finally stopped Stabler. Number 44, Terry Schmidt, intercepted the snake, and the Bears had suddenly gained the momentum as the fourth quarter was about to begin. Following the theft, Evans went right to the air, and he teamed on 2 consecutive passes with tight end Emery Moorhead, number 87. The second one good for 36 yards. But Evans, like McMahon, could not shake New Orleans' tenacious pressure. Even when they didn't sack the quarterback, the Saints put tremendous pressure on him, forcing him to hurry the throw. When Evans was dropped in the fourth period, it was the 7th sack of the game for the Saints, tying a team record. But New Orleans was not the only team playing tough defense. Following a 3-touchdown third quarter, both units tightened up, and in the 8 minutes that began period 4, the game was marked by hard-hitting defense and turnovers. Evans used his quickness and scrambling ability to avoid another Saints sack and hooked up with wide receiver Ken Marjoram for a 26-yard gain. But on the next play, Evans fell victim to the turnover as linebacker Dennis Winston made an outstanding play to thwart what appeared to be another big gain for the Bears. The Saints' 24-17 advantage appeared safe for the moment, but following a pass interference call on Chicago that brought the ball into Bears territory, New Orleans coughed up the football. Okie Gaijan's fumble was picked up by Todd Bell, number 25, and returned 10 yards. Bell's lateral to Gary Fensick occurring after the whistle had blown the play dead. The Bears were a touchdown away from tying the score, and they immediately ended this game of defense and giveaway with a little razzle-dazzle. On the halfback pass, Walter Payton's rainbow came down in the hands of Willie Gault, and the Bears had suddenly and brilliantly evened the score at 24 with 6 minutes remaining in the fourth period. Payton had provided the Bears with their 2 second-half scores, one on a run and one on a pass. In addition, he had already rushed for over 100 yards on his way to a 161-yard day, the second time in 3 1983 contests that he had exceeded the century mark. But number 34 was not finished yet. With the score now tied at 24, the Bears seemed to be firmly in control of the game. Their defense had responded following Stabler's 2 third-period touchdown passes, and they did again here, as number 73, Mike Hartenstein, sacked Stabler on a crucial third-down play. 5 minutes remained in regulation, and the Bears' defense had done its job, giving the offense an excellent opportunity to regain the lead for the first time since early in the opening period. But Evans fired a bullet right into the hands of Saints cornerback Johnny Poe. Poe raced untouched into the end zone, and all of a sudden the Bears were trailing 31-24. The Saints had bounced back on the strength of one big play, and the game would be theirs if their defense could hold Chicago in the remaining 3 minutes of regulation. A second look at the interception shows that Evans was confused in the pocket, started to panic, and then threw off balance, hoping to hit Ken Marjoram. Poe read the play perfectly, and once he picked it off, there was nothing but daylight ahead of him. Dejected Vince Evans knew he would have a chance to bring the Bears back, and he did just that on Chicago's next possession. Evans used his agility to escape the rush, and on the run he hit Emory Moorhead for 24 yards into New Orleans territory. Following the 2-minute warning, Evans went to the straight dropback and again found Moorhead over the middle. This time good for 19 yards to the Saints' 21-yard line. Walter Payton had been quiet for a while. Now it was time for number 34 to bring his team back for the second time in the second half, and in the same manner. Some question as to whether Willie Gault actually caught his third touchdown pass of the game or whether he was beyond the end line. But after an officials' conference, it was ruled that Gault had both feet in the end zone, and the Bears had themselves another tie, 31-31, with a minute and a half left in regulation. Another look at the tying score reveals perfect execution on Chicago's part. Payton had all day to throw, and Gault was wide open. The Bears had come from behind again on the passing of Evans and Payton and the receiving of their rookie speedster Gault. Their defense would give them an opportunity to win in regulation. Harris's hit on Stabler forced a fumble, and Chicago recovered on the Saints' 33-yard line with 1 minute and 23 seconds left. But the Bears could not win it. 2 penalties pushed them out of field goal range, and they had to settle for the 31-31 tie as time ran out. But the Bears turned conservative in the overtime period while the Saints, despite being pinned at their own 1-yard line, went to the air. Stabler threw high-percentage short passes, and he marched New Orleans out of trouble in a hurry. On 4 of his first 6 plays, Stabler passed, completing all 4. Then he crossed up Chicago, countering a blitz by sending Wayne Wilson, number 30, around left end. And the big fullback rumbled for 20 yards, putting the Saints in range for a game-winning field goal. Four plays later, New Orleans was ready to win it, and Morton Anderson coolly booted it home to give the Saints a hard-fought 34-31 overtime victory. The Saints won their second game of the 1983 season, while the Bears lost their second. It was a game highlighted by brilliant play on both sides and punctuated by one big play after another. The Saints had emerged victorious in the kind of game they used to lose all the time. By beating the Bears, they took an important step in believing in themselves. The final score from the Superdome: New Orleans 34, Chicago 31.